لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
A new 9-month-old son who has been newborn, a 9-month-old son who has been diagnosed with mitochondrial disorder. Doctor said it's not curable, and worst case scenario is death in a few years. Is there a specific dua I can make for his cure? What other actions or amal can I do to help him? Also, he requests that make dua for him here. His name is Amir.
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him afiyah, well-being. The most important thing in making dua is to have yaqeen, is to have certitude. Right? Is to have certitude that when we make dua, Allah Most High has guaranteed that He will answer, but He'll answer in the way that is of most benefit to us. Right? When it is answered and how it is answered is up to Allah. He has guaranteed that He'll answer. لكن في الوقت الذي يريد لا في الوقت الذي تريد وعلى الوجه الذي يريد لا على الوجه الذي تريد. Allah has guaranteed for you His response, but in the way that He wills, not in the way that you wish. And at the time that He wills, not at the time that we wish. So the most important thing in making dua is to have certitude in the divine response, contentment and confidence in that response, happiness, appreciation at being able to ask. And He only inspired you to ask because He has willed that He'll give you. How? That is up to Him. That's one thing to keep in mind. The second is one should never forget the reality of the hereafter. Life makes no sense without being clear on what comes after. We're just in Act 2 of a 5-part play that is called life. Something happened before we come into this life. If you don't know what happened before, you'll be a little bit confused in this life. Like, what's going on? And thankfully, most people don't think. They just walk around and they're a bit confused because they don't know what happened in part 1. But the end of this life is only the end of part 2 of a much longer production, right? Which is the story of life. Right? You move on to a part 3, which is the life of the interworld, the barzakh, the life of the grave. From there, one moves on to the afterlife in part 4, which is the day of resurrection and reckoning. And then part 5, which is really when everything comes together, is heaven and hell. And what happens in this life only makes sense in context of that bigger picture. So one should also have that complete certainty, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, gave us many hadiths, right, that tell us that, a child who dies is in paradise. Right? And the child who dies in their infancy, and particularly if they died due to disabilities or challenges or health, etc., that they will intercede for their parents. They will intercede for their parents, and they pray for their parents. So one should have that surety that we take the means in this life, and we seek the cure, the healing, but this is just part 2. It all makes sense in part 5, right? So the play is much longer than this. And of all the stages, the shortest part of the play is part 2, is this life. It's like the blinking of an eye. Right? So to have that clarity and certitude, so we make dua and make heartfelt dua yourself, but with complete certitude and clarity that this child is a precious gift from Allah. And even if the child returns to Allah, He has promised that you will be reunited, as long as you uphold your part of the production, which is that you carry out your role, and you'll find yourself there in part 5 in heaven, in the best of states. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He grant health and well-being to all those in challenges and distress, but also to grant us the coolness and clarity of certitude that whatever happens to the believer is for their good, and that there is no loss ultimately for the one who has faith and certitude, because the hereafter is far more real than this life. Right? It is this life that is fleeting and ultimately a disappointment. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who nurture their certitude and who have the clarity of having complete confidence in the divine promise. And one of the ways to nurture that certitude is the Quran, which is ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This is the book in which there is no uncertainty, there is no doubt, there is no confusion, there is only clarity. It is al-haqqul mubin. So if any time one feels shaken, one of the things one should say is hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. God is our sufficiency, and He is, and how great a guardian that He is. And the wakil is one who acts on your behalf. Okay? Now, you could have a good, they're your agent. The wakil is your agent. Someone you ask to do something on your behalf. Now, you can have a good agent or a bad agent. If you have a bad agent, right, so Allah has taken on to take care of that, outcomes are in His hands. Right? So what happens as the result of your choices in this life? What happens in the future? Allah is taking care of that on your behalf. Now, if you appoint someone as your agent, they could be a good agent or a bad agent. They're a bad agent. You tell someone, rent me a house in Montreal. You're going to spend a few weeks. Many things happen, and you can't book on Airbnb because you gave so many bad reviews that no one will agree to you renting their apartment. I used to be kind of worried about my Uber score, but then I checked; it was actually not that bad. You can now see your Uber score on the opening screen if you bother to look. So you asked your friend, "Can you book me a place?" Now, if your friend's a complete fool, you'd feel a little. If they're not reliable, you would feel a bit hesitant. That what kind of place will they book? But if your friend understands better than you do, they have better judgment, they have more experience, they're more capable, then you'll have confidence that they'll take care of it. Now the one upon whom you have no choice but to trust in is the one who biyadihi al-amr, in his grasp are all matters. And He has told you in advance that He is merciful, that He is caring, that He will protect, that there's none more perfect than Him, more majestic than Him, more merciful than Him. So if you know who Allah is, then you have complete trust in Him, because no meaning of trust makes sense absolutely except if directed towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All other trust is relative and conditional. So say hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil with complete confidence in Allah, with the coolness of certainty. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us that. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله